Scott from Hiram Clark. B. 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 Scott from Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark. Do it. Do the Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark. Do it. Do the Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark. Do it. Do the Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark. Do it. B. Scott from Hiram Clark. Coming down looking smart. Candy paint on the car. Push the button just to start. Riding clean, looking fly. H-Town till he die. Swinging down West Time and throw the deuces in the sky. Sam Houston represent. You other cats irrelevant. He be at the press conference getting all the questions in. 6'10 represent. You know how he do it. B. Scott from Hiram Clark. Hiram Clark do it. B. Scott from Hiram Clark. 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 Do the Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark.
All right, welcome into the B Block Podcast. Appreciate y'all for joining me. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Scott, and I told y'all yesterday that today's episode would be dedicated to baseball related. I understand that the Rockets got a game tonight, and it's a potential playoff matchup between the Rockets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not expecting Anthony Edwards to be out there, but nonetheless, got a big Rockets game tonight. But I wanted to look ahead even further than that and to focus on a specific team that we just have not talked about a lot on this podcast lately because there hasn't been much of a reason to, and that's the Houston Astros. Opening day is Thursday. We're about to be there doing this on Wednesday afternoon. They've got the Los Angeles Angels, which to me, it would be such a disappointment for the Astros not to come away from the weekend. They got 4 games against the Angels, excuse me. They got 4 games against the Angels. It would be such a disappointment if they did not come away with a sweep or at least a 3-1 type of situation here, given what the Angels are and the fact that the Astros, despite the fact that they missed the postseason for the first time in such a long time, that they were right there on the cusp of it and still have a pretty decent crop of talent. Like they are, at least they're not the Astros that we're used to. And we're going to talk about all this. They got a lot to prove, but they are still like a credible baseball team, a credible outfit. So to lose your opening day series would be disastrous. So I'm expecting a lot from the Astros. Not that it's the end of the world. Of course, it's just going to be 1-4 of 162, but big week coming up. And we got the opening day roster. That's the big part of the news today, or the big piece of Houston sports news today is getting the official opening day roster. And the big takeaways, there are 2 big takeaways from the opening day roster. One of them is Jeremy Peña being on the opening day roster, especially with it's not that he's on the roster. Nobody anticipated that one of their best players would be on the roster. It's just that he had that fractured finger that he sustained earlier in the month out in the Dominican Republic as part of the World Baseball Classic. I think a lot of people were assuming that he would not be on the roster and that would kind of solve their infield influx issue, at least for the beginning part of the season, because it would allow Carlos Correa to go back to shortstop and they could put Isaac Paredes at third base. Now, as my guy Noah is mentioning here, Peña looked fine last night, and there's no surprise based off of how he looked last night that he's actually going to be on this roster. It is just now officially official. But what it does is create a new question, or not a new question. It re-raises the question of what do you do with this infield surplus that you had trying to trade Isaac Paredes throughout the offseason. Didn't work out. Thought you were going to have be able to solve that at least for the beginning part of the season and maybe still shop him while you make use of him if Jeremy Peña was going to be out. Now it looks like Jeremy Peña is going to be available. So that's kind of story number one to me from the opening day roster, is that Jeremy Peña is back. The other one is Brice Matthews beating out Zach Cole. And maybe this is a bigger story to some because this was sort of a big question toward the end of the spring was who's going to get that last roster spot. And as we know, Zach Cole did not do himself any favors, I think, in the way that he played in the spring. And I think they're still hopeful with him as like a left-handed bat option, and we know how badly they need that. But Brice Matthews outplayed dude, and Brice Matthews now, because of his versatility, the fact that they were able to put him out there in left field, a little bit in center field, and already trust his ability in the infield. Now he's a versatile guy that they can really work with. And Zach Cole, meanwhile, as their hopeful extra left-handed bat option, is going to have to go to AAA and really figure things out. So that's the sort of the big takeaway, is that Brice Matthews, who is a big part of, I think, now the smaller picture story of the opening day roster and the bigger picture story of what's going on with this Astros team right now. What is this shift that the Astros are trying to make, or how is this shift going to go that the Astros are trying to make from a previous successful era to what has to now be a new one, right? Like the last couple of years now, getting swept in the postseason by the Tigers in one year, and then not going to the postseason at all the next year, and now going 2 whole years without having won even a playoff game. That's now the line of demarcation between Astros eras. And what's supposed to take the Astros to that next step from, like, out of whatever rut that is over the last couple of years to, again, the new successful era of Astros baseball. And a lot of that to me rides on, at least from what we can see now, not to mention of like the younger prospects and the teenagers that they got in the system, and the fact that the system itself is pretty barren and has been for a while, but they do have some really, really young players that are talented. From like what your eyes can see right now, it's Brice Matthews and Cam Smith, you know, and I guess to a lesser degree right now, Zach Cole. But that's a big part of, I think, the overall story, the overall Astro story that we're trying to tell, or trying to figure out, the questions that we're trying to answer about the team this year. So again, Brice Matthews outperforms Cole in the spring and really just earns the job. He's going to get a chance to platoon with Joey Lopefito and Yordan Alvarez, however it is that they decide to divvy up the Yordan Alvarez left field versus designated hitter time. And I'm probably just at odds. I'm curious on what y'all think. Y'all let me know in the chat and in the comments when you watch the playback of how y'all feel about Yordan Alvarez being almost exclusively a designated hitter, given the issues that they have with the infield surplus that we're talking about. Like, are you of the mind that you just don't trust Yordan Alvarez in left field because you don't want him to get injured and you're trying to keep him healthy? Or are you of the mind of he just doesn't play left field good enough for you? Is it both? Or are you like me and feel like putting Yordan out there in left field while you try to figure this thing out is not the worst thing in the world, and allowing Isaac Paredes to DH? Because see, my thing is, look, there is no perfect answer here to this infield surplus issue that we're talking about. The most logical one to me seems to be having Yordan Alvarez play left field, allow Isaac Paredes to be your DH. But the Astros don't seem to want to do that. I would hate for them to struggle at the plate early in the season and it take learning the hard way for them to realize that this is the best route. But I believe that it is. Alvarez in left field, Paredes at DH. I wouldn't mind seeing Paredes at second base, even though everybody's telling me that it wouldn't work and it's not a good idea. I wouldn't mind seeing him at second base and Altuve DHing. Or the the hilarious scenario that they tried to show us last year of Altuve in left field, an experiment that they apparently have completely abandoned that. But I wouldn't mind some mixing and matching sort of combination of that. But it doesn't look like they want to do any of that either. And I'm honestly not sure who would be like, it's sacrilege to say you would bench Jose Altuve or anything like that. And I'm not even suggesting it, but I'm honestly not sure which one of them would be the worst second baseman at this point between Altuve and Isaac Paredes. Uh, Just tell me it's Paredes, but the infield question is going to be there opening day until we see how they fix it exactly. But with Brice Matthews, H-Town kid, you know, I like this opportunity for him. I really do. I really like this opportunity for him to be able to get some time in the outfield and then offer an option in the infield as well. He is not Mauricio Dubon. He is not Mauricio Dubon at all. But even though he's not Mauricio Dubon, and that would be kind of, that would be a lot to put on a rookie. I think he has an opportunity to seize that type of role with this team because of his versatility, because of his. I think Sean and Seth on Sports Radio 610 this morning. I think Sean was making this point that he'll have that sort of mix and match ability. Y'all remember back when it was Aledmys Diaz. Most recently, it's Mauricio Dubon. I think now Brice Matthews. That's his best way to playing time, and then we'll see what his future looks like after that. But I think him and like his development and Cam Smith, what they look like, in addition to how competitive the Astros are this year, are like the big major storyline. Two of the big major storylines that you can parse through. Matthews, he's got a long way to go at the plate now. Got a long way to get. Look, between him and Cole, right? Like Cole has to work on the strikeouts, and Matthews himself had what we've seen in his time, in his limited time in the big league so far, where he's looked lost at times at the plate. But I'm excited about the journey. I'm interested to see how that all progresses this year with him. So those are the opening day roster thoughts. Let's see if we got anything that we want to touch on. Noah says they got rid of Dubon and Matthews is the pseudo Dubon. Yeah, I think that's fair, or at least that's what they're trying to make him. That's what he has an opportunity to be, as I was just mentioning. Mentions that Cole has to work on the Ks. Yeah, how many times did he strike out in Grapefruit League? A lot. I know that. Let's see, what was it? 20 times and 40. It looks like Zach Cole struck out 20 times and 40 at bats. So half the time he was out there striking out. Also says that Matthews looked good this spring and his ability to play left field and center field only helped him. Agree. Also, Noah mentions that yes, let me know what you. It fixes the infield surplus. It fixes the infield surplus if he's out there. None of his injuries have come from being in left field. He wants to be out there. Talking about Yordan Alvarez. Yeah, no. I mean, not only have his injuries not come from being out there, there was that one time when he collided with Jeremy Peña a couple of years ago, and that was a pretty scary moment. And you definitely don't want that happening. But you're right. The injuries have not come from playing in left field. And if you look at his numbers from when he plays out, it's always been the case that he plays better. Like he's a better overall player and a better hitter, most importantly, data wise, when he's in the outfield. So, and a lot of players will tell you that they just get a better rhythm when they're out there playing defense or whatever their position is, as opposed to just being expected to go out there and hit alone. So, I'm hopeful. Let's get to a couple of these. Speaking of Jordan Alvarez, Chandler Rome, colleague over, you know, Houston sports media colleague, works at the Athletic, covers the Astros at the Athletic. Pretty much the whether y'all like Chandler Rome or not. I know a lot of Astros fans don't, but he is the guy. He is the leading voice on Astros coverage, whether you like it or not. And doesn't I think, you know, y'all the public's personality conflicts aside, I think he does a really good job. He's got some Astros predictions here, and I think they're really interesting. Y'all tell me what you think about these, and let people know. You know, we don't talk about the Astros a lot, so a lot of people might have checked out, expecting to hear about the Rockets, expecting to hear about the Texans, but baseball season is here, baby, and I'm excited about it. So y'all let the people know that we're gonna be talking about the Astros, man. Share this, tell a friend, all of that kind of stuff. But prediction number one, again from Chandler Rome at the Athletic, says Jordan Alvarez is gonna have his first 40 home run season, his first one. Now, the reason why that prediction kind of catches people off guard is because not that he would hit 40 home runs, but that this would be the first one that he's had. But the issue has been is that he just has not played enough. You know, the most that he's ever hit is 37, I think in 2022 when they won the World Series. But he's never hit 40 because he doesn't really play enough. And the idea is this year, especially if they're going to wrap him in bubble wrap and have him only hit for the most part, this should be the year that he's able to hit his first or have his first 40 home run season. So I actually like this prediction. He was limited to just 48 games last season. You got to figure that he's coming out here with something to prove. When he plays, he's basically just as good, or the only guys who have been better than him over the last 7 seasons are Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. So he's literally like not just the Astros' best hitter, but he's one of the best hitters that the game of baseball has to offer. So if he's going to be out there, 40 home runs is definitely in play. And if you think about if you are able to get a 40 home run season from Jordan Alvarez with relative talent to what you had the previous year. Now you're pitching, we'll see what the pitching ultimately looks like and how that gets managed and everything. But if you just add 40 home run Jordan Alvarez to a team that looks a lot like last year's team looked, that's a playoff team. That's a team that should compete for, sorry Seattle, I know y'all were really close to a pennant, but that's a team that should compete for the AL West again and should be right there in the mix with any other American League team. So, we talk about the windows and the eras and the pivoting and all of that, but they are, it feels like, just a monster season from somebody away. A monster Jordan Alvarez season, a breakout Cam Smith season, right? A monster Jeremy Peña season, right? Away from, or some combination of those things, away from this conversation really changing a lot. So, I thought that one was really interesting. Kind of on more so of a positive side, right? 40 home runs for Jordan Alvarez. How about on the negative side? Jeremy Peña becomes a realistic trade candidate. This is, I think, on the more bold side because it assumes that the Astros will not be competitive as the trade deadline approaches, which is the only way that this would even be possible, right? If they're a competitive team, they're not going to trade Jeremy Peña, despite the fact, at least not at the trade deadline, despite the fact that it looks unlikely that they're going to be able to extend him. So they got 2 more years left of Jeremy Peña. They have not been able to and I think he's got Scott Boras now, him and Hunter Brown. They have not been able to reach any kind of agreement, and it doesn't sound like they're close on any kind of extension or anything like that. So they would have to be, though, not competitive for Jim Crane to even allow Dana Brown to entertain offers for Jeremy Peña. So the like inflammatory part about that prediction is not simply the idea of trading Jeremy Peña, but the idea that this thing is going to be shot to hell before you even get to the or before you even get to the trade deadline. And so that makes for kind of a double whammy. But as Chandler points out, the Jeremy Peña stuff is it is essentially identical to the Kyle Tucker situation. Identical. So, that they were competitive in the last year with Kyle Tucker. So it made sense for them to keep him. Right? They at least went to the postseason and all of that. What if they're not in the identical season with Jeremy Peña? And even after that, is he a prime candidate for the same fate as what Kyle Tucker's was? Fate with the Astros, that is. Kyle Tucker's going to be just fine. Signed him a nice little contract. Is out there in LA with the Dodgers. Probably going to win a World Series this year. He's going to be just fine. But in terms of the Astros, they're now having to build from the ground up a little bit more with younger players, with Cam Smith, with Jeremy Peña, with Jeremy Peña being one of their veterans now, with with Brice Matthews making the team as a spark. So thought that was a good one. Tatsuyuki Imai wins the American League Rookie of the Year. And I don't know if we're calling him Ime or Imai. You can tell I've not been up to the ballpark just yet, but I'm going to get a hang of it. But this is, of course, the Japanese pitcher that they brought on. A lot of folks excited about this. I was on the air, I think, when with Patrick Creighton, of all people, when it was first reported that they were bringing this guy in. Chandler's predicting that he's the American League Rookie of the Year, and that's another one where you look at it and say, if they add that kind of quality, or if they're able to say he's like an adequate replacement to Framber Valdez, right? And or like somewhere near that realm. Okay, that's probably asking a lot, but I don't think that they're expecting that. But what if he is, right? Like if you get, or just between the combination of Imai, Mike Burrows, and man, I know a lot of folks are worried about Christian Javier and his velocity, but if between that combination, if you really get something, that would be big. But yeah, I think this one is a little bit bold, but can't say it's too far off. It looks like the favorites to win that are actually in Detroit and in Cleveland. But he'll be right there in the mix. Rookie of the Year race should be wide open. So, yeah. So those are the thoughts, and those are the predictions that Chandler Rome has. I want to hear from y'all. What do y'all think about these that Chandler put out there in The Athletic? Yordan Alvarez hitting 40 home runs. Jeremy Peña as a realistic trade deadline candidate, especially if the Astro season goes south, and Tatsuyuki Imai as the Rookie of the Year in the American League. Those are his three predictions. I want to hear from y'all, see what y'all think about that. In the meantime, look, man, I got to go get these credentials so I can get ready for Sweet 16, and so I can get ready for opening day, right? I probably should have picked them up already by now, but I'm going to go do that before it's time to be on the radio I'm gonna be on. If y'all are watching this now, I'm gonna be on at 4:40, Sports Radio 610, with Clint Sterner and Paul Gallant is in for Ron Show Hughley today. So me with Clint Sterner, Paul Gallant, The Drive, Sports Radio 610. Catch us on the radio, catch us on the Odyssey app, catch us right here on YouTube on the Sports Radio 610 YouTube. We'll be doing that. We'll be talking Rockets. I'll be on Within the Loop later on in the week as well. That's on Friday from 11 to noon. So we'll have a good time with that. But in the meantime, man, I appreciate y'all for being here. This is the B Block Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. And I'll see y'all next time.